Okay, so proprioception walks. So this is something I've learned from following the work of Dr. Andrew Locke. So what's the point of this exercise? The point of this exercise is, as the name suggests, it's working the skills of proprioception. So this is particularly useful if people have got kind of joint issues that don't seem to be responding to normal methods. So two examples of that would be if I've got someone who has got a positive result to a heel drop test and covering basics like lateral stability with side bridges and rotational stability with bird dogs, and they're still positive to that test, there's still an unstable joint in there that needs a bit of extra help. And it might be that the body's got the components there, but the software around those components is so corrupted that we need to physically, we need to reprogram it, so the body learns to lock things back in again and get a better understanding of controlling that joint. And also, if you've got, that can be particularly useful if you've got like one bad hip, or FAI they call it. Basically, just means if the top of your femur is kind of a bit stuck out the joint and it goes forward a little bit, it's a bit impinged because the glutes and other bits and pieces around the hip aren't quite firing properly. And again, we've done the basics like glute bridges and lateral stability, and it doesn't seem to be correcting itself. Again, we might need to kind of reprogram the software around that hip to kind of get things to knit in again. So what do we do when we do proprioception walks? So we have a dowel rod. The reason we want a dowel rod is we want something nice and light, because if we put a heavy barbell on there, that's going to negate some of the weight that we add on. We want it to basically be as much weight as possible is focused on the actual weight we add to it to basically make it as wobbly as possible. So if you've got a heavy barbell, it's actually going to be more stable. It's going to take away some of that kind of wobbly challenge. So we have a nice strong dowel rod or a broom handle. We put a rubber band around one end. So this is just like I've got a PTP one, but you can use whatever. It's just like a general gym training band, reasonably thick. You don't want it too thin. And I've just got like a little baby 6 kilo kettlebell, but you could use a dumbbell. But again, probably start lighter than you think. I've had a lot of people, get really challenged with just a little tiny 4 kilo on the end of that. So we set that up in a squat rack somewhere where we can, so it's safe. And all we're going to do is we're going to come in like it's a high bar squat position. So it's going to sit on top of your traps. And then from here, just squat it out the rack, and you just got to keep it tight to you. So you can see already it's wobbling. My nervous system is trying to control that uneven balance and that wobble. And then from here, what I like to do is just take 10 or so steps backwards, as nice and steady as you can, trying to control your posture, trying to control the wobbles that weight is generating. And when I've done 10 to 20 steps backwards, I'm going to come forwards and back in towards my rack. And again, I'm just trying to control it as much as I can, because it's pulling me all over the place because it's uneven as well and it's wobbly. And then we walk in, and then once we're ready, we just carefully rack. And I would keep the weight nice and close. If you've got a stand-up rack, keep the weight close, it doesn't flip the bar off the rack. Like that, easy peasy. So when you first start, you probably want to do that on its own. So again, I sort of go for sort of 4 to 6 sets of doing that with people. Have sort of 1 to 2 minute rest in between. In terms of loading the weight, so this is the 2 different variations that I use. If someone's got a hip issue, a weird goofy gammy hip, I load the weight contralaterally. So if you've been following the work of Dr. Andrew Locke, that's important that when we did a proprioception, we load it contralaterally to the side that's got the problem. That's going to give us the improvement and the development of skill and stability around that area. If I've got someone who's more of a heel drop test issue, I would just alternate sides with the weight, so they learn to control it on both sides. That's probably going to be more beneficial to them just on one side. And then what you would do is, once you've got a good base for just doing that, then you might need to add or superset it with some specific skill work. So for example, if you've got a bad hip because your glute control is off, you might do a set of these and then superset it with something like a touchdown squat, where you can be on a step with the rear foot straight, and then you're just going to sort of touch down. So we're trying to use that glute to stabilize the knee and the hip at the same time. So it's almost like we use this to kind of stimulate the body to reprogram what's going on, and then we give it the specific skill that we need to work on. If you're trying to get back into a particular sport, so say for example jiu-jitsu, and you've got to learn to get your body to control those components and stabilize your spine in the jiu-jitsu environment, I'd be more likely to do a round of this and then superset it with like standing grip fighting, you know, either in the gi or no gi, and just try and cut angles on your opponent. Just play with someone, try and get underhooks, collar ties. If you're in the gi, try and get your grips that you want to get, and just play around with it for 1 minute to 2 minutes or so. So your body knows that it's got to learn to reprogram this and then program it into things that you want to do. Again, if you're a boxer or something like that, you might do this and then just do your shadow boxing and do your movements. So again, you're activating the system and learning to apply it to things that you need to apply it to. So again, it's a useful tool, and then we can also superset it to make it a bit more specific to the environment and the skills that you need to apply. A great useful tool, again, doesn't work for everyone because not everyone uses it, needs it, but when you do need it, it can be a good tool for those weird instability issues that don't seem to correct once you've got kind of the basics in place.